Motion. Did they release motion? What's the motion? Heck. We prepped a lot. Prediction. Okay. I think we prepared for this. Yeah. Social media. Okay. Hope they didn't choose this. You're up though. Yeah. Oh, would be the one to ban? Okay. Okay. I think last one is good. Oh, shit. Oh, come on.
Okay, mic test. Okay. Before I start my speech, I would like to make a few shout-outs. Thank you everyone who have supported me throughout my whole debate tournament. I'm very grateful and thankful to everyone who supported me. And you guys are the real goats in here, okay? I love you. We love you. Right. I would like to start my speech in 3, 2, 1. When I was 12, I was bullied online because I posted my own face on social media. Me getting bullied just leaves this imprinted on my mind and in my heart. So that's why I think we should ban social media for kids under 16. Proud to propose. I will go into my speech with 4 pieces of setup and 2 main arguments. First, how this protects teens' mental health and how parents have the incentive to care for their child. Right, going into my setup. First, what does social media look like today? This looks like your average socializing platform like Instagram, YouTube, TikTok, Snapchat, or any other apps or examples that you could socialize with others online. This can also look like spaces where you can share your life and opinions, like on Instagram, where you could post your selfies or your vacation to Sabah. We think that this was when you had people engaging, interacting, and socializing with you online. What do children under 16 look like today? Children in the age range of 15 or however younger than 8. We think that these children look like this. They were the average kids, right? This means that they are vulnerable, and there is to say that they were raised in an environment that was sheltered. This means that their parents were raising them gently. The implication to this is that these kids were innocent and that they were going to take things too hard. That's when they were going to post something or engage with someone on social media. The engagement, which was evidence, where it's going to affect them positively or negatively. The negative comments could harm them and affect them when they're growing up, means that they won't be able to trust things that easily online, and they won't be able to share their feelings with anyone else because they can't trust people anymore. So, right, what does our model look like today? Banning all access for children under 16. This already exists in our status quo because it looks like, for example, Malaysia, our country, banning social media for kids under 16. It looks like protecting youth from cyberbullying, financial scams, child sexual abuse, and inappropriate content, right? So, for my burdens of debate today is proposition. Yes.
How exactly are you going to prove that these teens are under 16? How are you going to collect this data?
Right. So, with banning social media, there's always a setting where you have to put in your information and your face identification to go through this level, right? So that means you have to get your parental
they use VPNs also and stuff. It's all,
You have to get your parental
I think, yeah, I mean, those are
parental
all how
consent to
you-
go through this,
how-
so you can actually access through social media. Even if you're under 16 and accessing social media, your parents would be able to see what you're doing on there. So that means you won't be affected that seriously because your parents would be able to watch what you're doing and able to comfort you, right?
Oh, please flick
So
this.
continuing with our brothers in this debate, proposition proves to you why this could
Yeah, they all have.
affect the younger generation and how it was effective to their kids. And opposition has to prove to you why it was so good to have kids on liberty on social media and why it was inherently good. Right.
I don't know.
Moving
if
into my
just
argument.
prove that their case doesn't work.
How this protects teens' mental health. There are teenagers on social media and these teens are vulnerable and innocent. These teenagers are underage and we want to ban social media for kids under 16 because we think the majority are often getting cyberbullied online, right? Why? 3 layers then. Why do we think that's true? First layer, we think that these children are often innocent. Oftentimes, they don't know how to differentiate the risk of being online. We think that there are 2 scenarios in this debate today and what's happening now. We think that the people who are bullying are often underage and they bully others for their looks and bodies because they're immature and they don't know what else to spend their time on. Banning social media for kids under 16 already erases this problem from the get-go. For my second scenario, we think that kids under 16 are bullied often because of their age. There might be 17-year-olds bullying 14-year-olds because they post videos of themselves online. We think that these kids will take it to heart because they're vulnerable. So banning kids under 16 years old from social media too erases this problem, right? Second layer, my harms. We think that not banning children under 16-year-old further harms them from their growing up, right? And we think that kids who are now above 16 and accessible to social media are often mature enough to know that they shouldn't care about what others think. So third layer, my comparative. Opposition will say that the kids won't care if they are getting bullied because they are already normalized. But we think that these are the minority and cyberbullying is never okay. On our side, we think that banning children under 16, yes.
How many children are actually being bullied on social media? And what about the vast majority of children who use it for communication and building bonds with their friends?
You can see when you're on TikTok, you can see every video that you scroll, you look at the comments, you can see that there's at least 3 hate comments in one single scroll. And in those hate comments, there's always a fight between them. Even if you're engaging on social media, you could be saying your favorite things and whatsoever you like, but you still get hate because people find it weird, right? So, on our side, we think that banning children under 16 lets them grow in a safer environment around their parents' support, right? So, moving on to my second argument. How parents have the incentive to care for their child. Why do we think this is true is because A, parents do not want their child to get bullied and they know that it'll harm their mental health in the first place. B, there are more cases of cyberbullying which are happening now and little kids that are under 16 are going to be the most vulnerable people in the first place. People cyberbullying them because how young they are and how they look and how their body is shaped, etc. Why do we think this is so important is because we think that these parents don't want their fully developed child to get bullied in the first place, right? So why parental supervision is so important. And even if they were to snatch their parents' IC and forge their signature, we think that these are the minority cases, right? We think that these socials are going to often do security checkups. We think that there's a firewall for the children and parents anyways. With all these reasons and more, I've never been prouder to propose.
Speaker spoke for 7 minutes and 15 seconds. Thank you, Prime Minister. Now I'd like to invite the opposition leader to give their speech.
Their speeds are 50 kbps, their speeds are 50 frames. Wow! It's very, very bad. It's crazy, I don't know how they do this.
Am I audible at this
You
volume?
push this aside to reach out. Others can help type.
I will start my speech in 3, 2, 1. If I was an abused teen and I want to open up to people that won't make me feel embarrassed, in government's world, they shine this way. It leads teens to have no access to information sources. The ban blocks teenagers to actually open up, proud to oppose. Now, in my speech, I will be going over a few rebuttals, a call out, a few layers of setup along with an argument. Now, starting off with my call out. The government's entire case runs on the tangent of cyberbullying. Regulations on our side also helps this out. It also regulates cyberbullying, which means our side also helps out people or victims of cyberbullying. Now, onto my rebuttals. They met firstly on face identification. We say face identification is not entirely accurate, while ID scans can also be fake or you can use your parents' IDs just to access social media. And onto my second rebuttal about the incentive for parents to keep their kids safe. If the parents, yes, they do have incentive to keep their kids safe. But because of this, on our side, the parents can supervise the kids' social media presence and what they post online. It's just another layer of regulation to make sure that they're being tamed online, and they can just tell them directly, oh, you shouldn't really do this, it's not good for you. Alright, it's not good for your image. And onto my third rebuttal on mental health of teenagers. We mitigate it better. On our side, it's better because when you ban social media for these abused teenagers, it leads to them with no access. The ban blocks them away from these information sources, a way for them to comfort themselves. We tell you that social media provides support structures for these teenagers. Even if we don't ban social media for the kids under 16, it still doesn't solve the main issue, which is the mental health of teenagers. On our side, we have more transparency. On government, they just go underground channels with more depressed teenagers, and it leads to them living in their own echo chamber of just depressed kids. Okay?
Eli.
On opposition side, everything is online. If a teenager wants to talk about their mental health or self-harm, they have the comfort of being able to talk to someone online and consult with them, talk to their peers about it, while these people with a better state of mind can advise them on what to do. Now, onto my setup. Onto my first layer being, what does this look like? 3 points here. Firstly, technologies are used to estimate or confirm the user's age using ID document uploads, facial analysis, or biometric scanning. 2. These things raise significant privacy concerns and have variable accuracy. It's not entirely accurate. Third, note that government's world is not one where no teenagers are on social media, because they'll still find alternatives ways to go into social media anyways. Onto my second layer, what is the comparative? 4 points here. Teenagers will find workarounds that I mentioned before. Second, Australian surveys found 75% of under 16s intend to continue using social media despite the ban. Thirdly, like I've mentioned before, they'll find workarounds like VPNs, fake IDs, borrow accounts, and prevent parent verification as simple workarounds. And lastly, the conclusion being, teenagers are at the age where they are desperate to fit in. The ban is ineffective and extremely unnecessary. Now, onto my third layer of setup. What does our world look like? There's more transparency on what teenagers are posting. It allows things to be more regulated, and it isn't going to be brought into underground channels. Secondly, more effective safety regulations. A ban is an immediate lazy solution. It stops companies from controlling the content on social media because they can just say, oh, the teenagers aren't on the site anymore. We don't need to regulate it as much because there's no kids on the site, right? So on our side, companies tackle the root of the issue, which is the content, which is the reason entirely of why these teenagers are in a negative state in the first place. But on your side, these exploitatory companies will never take accountability for harmful content because they can say it was the teenagers' fault for being on social media in the first place after the ban. But on our side, if we let them continue on without the ban, they can have regulations, and if anything happens to the teenagers, the fault can reasonably be on the companies. Now, onto my fourth layer of setup, the stakeholders. The stakeholders here, vulnerable ones, are the teenagers. They are very young, they don't have a good perception of rules. If all of their friends are using fake accounts, they will too. They will be influenced to find workarounds because their friends are doing it. And even if they don't do this, they will still need socialization and ways to connect or to build bonds. And second stakeholder here, the social media companies. They want money, they are profit incentivized, and they are less incentivized to ban it properly because they lose a viewer base. Now, companies are incentivized to use user data and they need regulations to be sold online or used for user property. Now, onto my last layer of setup, which is burden. Listen to this carefully, government. You have to prove how these bans are effective and justified. Secondly, you have to prove how teenagers aren't going to just resort to the worst underground channels. And lastly, prove why the social media companies won't exploit user data. On our side, we will prove how there are better alternatives to banning. Prove how teenagers are more benefited on our side. Now, I'll move on to my argument, which is the regulation and why it's better on our side. And it's a really good alternative to banning entirely. Why? Because it doesn't cut off their access to social media entirely. They won't resort to other ways to comfort themselves. If they're in a negative state of mind, or if they're like mentally struggling, they'll find a different way to like comfort themselves, which kind of leads them to go into their own friend groups in real life, where they are all most likely also in a very bad state of mind. Okay. Because of this, they're stuck in their own echo chamber. There's no one from a third party view to tell them, you're like this, you gotta like do this to get better, you know, like there's no way for them to get that information if there's no one who's willingly, actively going to go in and tell them. Okay? And the alternative is also easier to manage because it's easier to regulate. It already happens here in status quo where the social media just like, they just say, okay, you can't post this because it's really bad it's really bad image. It's not good, it's not positive. And the teenagers who are like, okay, they're in a normal state of mind, they also need connections with the outside world. They're stuck in their own environment, in their own real life environment, which also sticks them in their own echo chamber, and it just makes communication harder. The importance is social media acts as an outlet for people who are depressed or struggling, and they will use it to express or help their own case. And now I would like to end my speech. Thank you very much.
Speaker spoke for 7 minutes and 23 seconds. I'd like to thank the opposition leader for their speech. I would now like to invite the Deputy Prime Minister to give their speech.
Yeah, correct. Hello, be here for now. Cameras here. I don't need space. Can I just... Where did Sunny come from? No, I thought it was coming somewhere.
Yes.
No? Can't the camera here? Yeah. It's okay. safety.
Great. Am I audible at this volume?
It's not even
I'll be starting my speech in 3, 2, 1. We have to protect the future kids of our generation. The people standing here, the people sitting on both sides of the house are both under 16. We need to protect these people from being exploited on social media. So proud to the post. Few things my speech here. Firstly, one major clash on the implication of social media. Then I'll forward one further extension. But before that, one strategic observation later on my speech. I think they ran a very uncharitable case here, right? Because they asserted something. They asserted that social media and the internet was a very utopic place, right? This means that they told you that they were going to be safe spaces, that everyone and everything over there was going to be very nice to you, that the friends that you made along the way on the internet, the friends that you had at Australia wasn't a catfish, one, and also didn't have any malicious intent. I think we've already analyzed you why this was so not true in PM in the first place, right? But then an issue on the implication of social media. There are 7 pushes you hear coming from opposition. Firstly, was that how will you know if they are faking it? How will you know if the children that you have right now are not faking identity verification, right? But okay, even if they are faking the numbers when you created on your Instagram account, we've already had firewalls for this. Per our second argument, we had 2 layers of protection. Firstly, was through identity verification. There was taking a video of you and taking your identity card, right? But secondly, there was a parental consent form. Even if you wanted to fake it, till you fake it, you had to have your parents' signature, right? But even if, in the very worst case on our side of the house, they were a rebellious scheme, we think this was a minority of cases. This was going to be bypassed with normal security checks anyway, per our second argument. That means that there were going to be notifications. They're going to ask you, are you really a parent or are you just a child under 16 years old? We think this was through getting religious security checks and asking whether you were actually a 16-year-old or not, or whether you were under his parents' supervision in the first place. This means they were taking photos of your face and taking videos of yourself. But secondly, if they told you that you could build bonds with your friends online, right? Okay, sure, we had to make a fair trade-off here, right? That is, you had to prioritize your safety over building bonds in the first place, right? That the time that you were off social media, your friendship would die out. But this was okay, because at the very least, you could be protected on social media. That the times that you were vulnerable and innocent, you could be protected on social media at our side of the house. But I think this is an assertion, right? That everyone on social media was good. We've already analyzed you that the world is not perfect. And everyone in here was not a very good person in the first place. We all made mistakes and we are all not good people. We think this was an assertion that everyone on social media on both sides of the house was going to be perfect people, right? But then, they also pushed you on regulation, right? But they told you this, that companies are going to remove bad content. But this was very unrecognized from their side of the house, right? That bad content was going to magically disappear on their side of the house. But insofar as there was still bad people in the world, and insofar as could never kill every single bad people in the world, there was going to be bad content resurfacing anyway. This means that companies had to regulate every single day. That even if they could remove all the bad content in one single day, it was going to resurface again the very next day. We think this was very, very problematic and very, very troublesome for these companies in the first place. But note here that this was never going to work in the first place. Then, they told you that parents can supervise their kids, right, through regulation. Sure, even if we've already analyzed you that it was the incentive of parents to take care of their children, to have the obligation to take care of their children, we told you that it was far less likely on their side of the house. This means there's going to be a less incentive to supervise your kids, because it wasn't in a very extreme case we're going to ban social media for all kids under 16, right? This means in status quo, it wasn't really taken seriously through parents. This means there was probably parents that didn't really care in the first place anyway, because it wasn't such a big issue in their mind to the point that there needed to be a ban and they had to regulate this on social media. But I'll take the POI.
You keep talking about bullying. I get bullied in school every day. You take me out of school and put me on online class where I can't socialize with my friends at all.
Fantastic! We've already had avenues to solve bullying in the first place. This means that you could just report it to your discipline teacher, right, or your headmaster. But it was far harder to control on social media. That means that the person behind the blank profile picture was going to be someone that could be anyone in this world, right? This means that it was harder to regulate who was going to bully you. We could regulate this on both sides of the house in status quo through physical bullying at school, right? But they also told you that the probability of us getting bullied was going to be low, right? That the kids getting bullied in status quo were going to be low. We've already proved to you that in status quo, in our side of the world, there was going to be high rates of bullying cases, right? That is to say that at the very least on our side of the house, the reason why they imposed this ban in the first place was because it was very extremist. But then, they also proved to you that this means that they had no access to information sources. But this is very funny coming from opposition, right? Because note here that social media was about socializing with others. This means you had engagement with others. Information sources look like Wikipedia or your average Google source. We were never actually restricting social media access for that, insofar as there was never really engagement or interaction, or you could post yourself on that. Insofar as Wikipedia and Google were places that you could find information on, I don't see why we should restrict access on that. But lastly, they pushed you that there were going to be support spaces on their side of the house. Sure, there were going, but either way, even if there was still safe spaces, it was the majority that there were going to be bullying cases. But even if there were going to be safe spaces on their side of the house, it was very funny, right? Because not all of your online friends on the internet or from Australia were a good influence. They asserted this. They told you that every single safe space on the internet was good. That every single person you interact on with the internet is good. But we've already analyzed to you that the internet is not a perfect place. But before I move on, Then an extension, right? Here's what we told you. Why was it so important to have these kids sheltered, right? Because the children of our generation, that people like my team in opposition and anyone competing in juniors, the children that I have in the future, we think it's going to be so important to keep them sheltered because they're still developing their mental capacity. This means they were still vulnerable and they were still innocent. They don't know the risk of the outside world or how they were never perfect or nice people online. This means that parents have the incentive and the obligation to take care of their kids. So to protect all of your kids in the future generation, you have to propose this motion.
Speaker spoke for 7 minutes and 23 seconds. I'd like to thank the Deputy Prime Minister for their speech. I would now like to invite the Deputy Opposition Leader to give their speech.
She's one of the best ones here. She no. She said she has to go to school today. Is it very red?
I would like to thank my teachers and to all generations of Lordans that have stepped on this podium before. As they say, third time's the charm. Proud to oppose. My speech will start in 3, 2, 3, 2, 1. In my school, they say, come with hope, leave with success. I come with the hope for a safer digital world with regulations where cyberbullying doesn't happen in the long term. And I have confidence that our team will leave with success. I tell you a very simple analogy on our side. When you say that children are getting cyberbullied, that is why you need to take them off of these social media like platforms. I've already told you a similar analogy. Children get bullied in school. The solution is disciplinary teachers. It's not to take them out of these schools and go to online learning where every single bit is regulated, like at a very large scale. I tell you this is the exact same on our side when we give you our mechanism of community bans and reports that become only like even more prevalent when you put the accountability on the social media companies themselves. But before I move into one substantive on support structures on our side, let me give a few call-outs and clarifications on what has been stated by side of government. First of all, I want to point out this small scale of impact, where their entire case and entire benchmark of harms hinges on this community of citizens who are being cyberbullied. I tell you that this is already a very small impact because there are already regulations online that people are actually have goodwill. If they see a hate comment, it's very easy for you to just report it to the social media company and get it taken down. So people who are cyberbullied, this is a small impact. And I tell you the majority of teenagers who do use social media use it to communicate. We have a larger scale of impact on our side. But second of all, I wanted to point out their uncharitable case where they frame it that every single person will be banned. They frame that their ban will be 100% effective and no one will slip through the cracks. We've already told you that this is impossible, that regulations and bans, even laws, are never perfect, and there will always be people who slip through the cracks, and it's very hard for you to regulate if the only thing that you're doing is putting a checkbox and saying, are you 16? I can just check the other box, or I can just use my parents' account. There are workarounds, and you never stated how you stop these workarounds. One clarification here. We never said social media was a utopia. We just said it becomes better in the long term. Because even if it's bad currently, even if it's so uncharitably toxic as you say, companies are held accountable only on our side. On your side, people who lose their child because they die from suicide, no thank you, can never sue these companies, can never get revenge for their child's loss, for their own loss, because it was their children's fault. This 16-year-old who doesn't even know how to do algebra yet, it was their fault for following what all your friends were doing and going on social media. You actually get justice on our side. Companies want to be viewed as credible and safe because parents care so much about what their children actually use. I tell you that it looks like children being like much worse off on your side. And also, you talked about information access, right? I wanted to say a few things. Who uses media? I think we all learned about SSIDC through their incredible promotion on Instagram. Okay, a few rebuttals here. Number one, on cyberbullying. I tell you that it's worse because there's less regulation on your side. But even if this does still happen, I think there are more benefits on our side when people are actually incentivized to talk to their friends. Because the thing is, I am only with my friends in school for like around 7 hours, and most of that time is spent doing a lot of homework. I tell you that people form more emotional bonds with friends, and this is important for these teenagers in these situations because who actually has the guts to talk to their parents about being depressed? I think that they will feel embarrassed, and it's more likely that they actually talk to their friends they have emotional bonds with because they feel closer to them, more proximate. They can actually relate to their horrible teacher that keeps giving them homework and makes them feel depressed. But second of all, we talk about how not all people are a good influence on social media. Sure, this is true, but this is true for every single interaction that we have in real life. And also, I tell you that because you frame parents as this wonderful being that is so care about their child, I think parents are very likely to actually supervise what their child posts on social media. And also, we would much rather have everything like a child's social media account be very transparent and show to their parent rather than them having to hide everything they're posting on social media from their parents because it's illegal, because they don't want their parents to scold them. Before my argument, I'll take one go.
How is regulation on your side going to work if you are just removing bad content only?
Okay, I would like to point out something. I think it's way easier to have an automated regulation system where, for example, if someone posts very bad content, like they have a certain word, if they say suicide, if they say like self-harm, or if they post very graphic content, you immediately take it down. But you allow people to actually report things and take it down. It's much easier to do this than to actually regulate and manage the 1,000 face IDs that you guys get compiled and make sure that it's all correct. I think that even if like you get all these correct like IDs and everything, it's very hard for you to, and you have to spend a lot of resources to actually ensure that all of this is correct. It actually takes a lot of time and it's not going to be accurate. So also on our side, we told you that regulations happen only more effectively on our side because you have no accountability. You haven't engaged with that yet. One main substantive on how we actually have support structures on our side. This is true because there are a lot of people in this world who just don't have friends in school. It's very sad, unfortunately. For example, people of the LGBTQ plus society, people who are disabled, these are in isolated areas that rely on online communities for support. The thing is, these people, for example, the disabled, they have limited mobility, and online friends are their only way to get acceptance and information. And for example, even for the teens, the normal teens who go have friends in school, they are cut off from social media, and this has large-scale harms because it prevents them from actually communicating online. Why is this important? Two main impacts here. Number one, these vulnerable stakeholders are the most important because they have no other way around this. if you're being cyberbullied online, you can still report it, you can still ban it, you can talk to your parents, or you can just get off social media or with your own choice. If it's so toxic, people just won't get on social media in the first place. I tell you, a gay teenager in a conservative town has no one to turn to. A disabled teen with limited mobility has no other friends. The ban does not care. This is not protection, it is just cruelty disguised as a policy. But second of all, on communication, right? I tell you that social media sites like WhatsApp are used to share class notifications. They're used to discuss lesson plans and discuss group projects. I tell teenagers have to completely depend on their parents to get all these notifications on your site. This means that they never actually learn how to reply to messages, to socialize online. And this leads them to having less lasting bonds. Very simple way before I wrap up my speech, right? On our side, we have actual long-term benefits. We actually solve the root cause of the problem and lead to social media becoming more safe in the long term because we actually have avenues to report people that are actually being very mean to you. And social media actually has an incentive to improve its system instead of just warding off any accountability on your side of the house. And also the scale of benefits is larger because notice how you only argue on a very small minority of people, completely ignoring the majority of us that get our information and our emotional connections from social media. Never been prouder to oppose.
Speaker spoke for 7 minutes and 12 seconds. I'd like to thank the Deputy Opposition Leader for their speech and would now like to invite the government rep to give their speech.
Give me a minute, please.
Okay, before I start my speech, I'd like to do some shout-outs to my senior, Kieran, for guiding me through SSIDC, and I'm very thankful for everyone who has supported me throughout this whole SSIDC, and I am very grateful for the teammates that I have, and that's all for now. Okay. I'll be starting my speech in 3, 2, 1. Opposition side of the house decided to remove bad content, but never the people who make bad content in the first place. I'm very proud to propose. The structure of my speech is very simple: rebuttals and clashes and weighing, right? Now, rebuttals. How would you know that these kids are under 16, right? We already told you that there will be identity verification. That is to say that these kids need to take pics of their IC and take a pic of their face, right? And even if they were to take their parents' IC, we think that these are the minority cases, right? But we also think that they will do security checkups often anyway, so I don't get why their rebuttal is very strong in the first place. Second of all, they are saying that we blocked information sources, right? Information sources means like Wikipedia or Google, right? They are not blocked. We never blocked them in the first place. And if you really wanted a healthy way to heal from your depression or anxiety or self-harm, right? I think it's better that you find find ways to even solve that problem through trusted sources and not like people from social media, right? Now moving on to the regulation, which is remove bad content. Yes, even though they remove the bad content, but the bad contents are still going to resurface immediately after. This is just more troublesome for the companies, right? And they never even said that they will remove these people who are making the bad content in the first place or doing cyberbullying, right? That's all people who are malicious intent, right? So they are still allowing bad content and bad people on their side of the house. So I don't know how they can protect children under 16 like that, right? Now, moving on to clashes, supervision versus regulation, right? We win on this clash because first of all, supervision, we still co-opt supervision on our side of the house, right? We already told you that parents have the incentives to protect their children from people who are malicious intent or like cyber bullies, right? And if they were to I'll take a bit.
Yeah, If you say parents have this incentive, when they see their child being cyberbullied online, why won't they report that person and get them banned off social media?
Problem is that doesn't mean that the companies will actually do it, right? Even if you want to ban them in the first place, that doesn't mean they can make more accounts to like bully you back or something, right? Now, moving on to the regulation part, they only said that they will remove bad content but never the people. So that's why their whole mechanism is just very soft line and it will fall down in the first place. Now, another rebuttal is that they can report the people in the comments if they were to cyberbully that person, right? And even if you were to report the people in the comment section telling you that you are so ugly or something, that doesn't mean that the companies will take it seriously. You don't know how many people report comments every day, report posts or bad content every day, and yet they are still not taken down. Because these companies are profit incentivized, they give these people who comment, they let profit go into their banks. So I don't get why these companies care so much anyway. And even if you were to say these companies regulate and remove bad content, that doesn't mean they will remove the people, and that doesn't mean that the people will not. That doesn't mean that the people will not make other accounts to rebash that person. And with all those reasons, propose.
Speaker spoke for 3 minutes and 41 seconds. I'd like to thank the government whip for their speech, and I would now like to invite the opposition whip to give their speech. We'll begin with exactly 1 minute. Opposition whip, and we know your 1 minute is over, and we kindly invite you to the stage to give your speech. Reminder to the audience, please keep applauses to the end of the after the speaker is finished.
I'll just assume I'm audible, yeah. Before I begin, I'd like to give a few shout-outs, like very short. I'd like to thank to the entire Lodge contingent for coming out and watching our journey to the finals. It means a lot to me. Thank you to my teammates as well, and also thanks to the seniors and my family for supporting me. I'll start in 3, 2, 1. I sacrificed my goddamn midterms for this. I tell you here, I already rejected studying from the very start. Just like how I reject every single claim coming from side government, public purpose. In my speech today, I'll be answering 2 questions for you. Number 1, which side actually proves the benefits for these vulnerable stakeholders? Number 2, on which side actually proves better in the long term? I tell you here that it's side opposition. But before that, I will go on to a few call-outs, responses, then after that on my best case and worst case scenario here. Now on to a few call-outs. Number 1, they said even if we report, they said that even if on our side there's reports, nothing happens and the catalyst is still there. I tell here, the main incentive for companies is to make their social media platform safer. So when you get reported so many times, of course the social media will obviously ban you for this. We remove the catalyst of the problem and social media becomes safer under our side of the house. Now, onto a few responses there. Number 1, how they said solving mental health. I tell here, in most people don't have the access to trusted. Yeah.
How are you so sure that these companies are not profit incentivized because a lot of people are
Okay, I get what I'm trying to say. I tell here that companies obviously want people to be on their platform here. So I feel that their profit incentive, the profit incentive is to keep people on the platform. And to actually keep people on the platform is to make the platform safer. That is why they have incentive to make it safer. Now carrying on my responses, I tell here that most people don't have access to trusted sources like therapy. They only have friends. So even if this doesn't happen on your side either, they have no one to turn to. Because I tell you in status quo, some people have friends and they use that to go and consult them to actually open up with them. The second rebuttal then on ineffectiveness on social media regulations. I tell here that it's untrue and bans are even less effective. Now the comparative here. Let's take our case at the worst case scenario. All regulations fail. The bottom line on our side is that people are banned, people on your side are banned. This the majority of teens lose info and communication. Because I tell here, when you ban social media for these teens are blocked of information sources. You block the teens from getting better mitigation, which I tell here the better mitigation happens on our side because you scorn away the opportunities for these teenagers to actually receive help online. Now onto a few clashes here. Number 1, on which side actually proves bad. Okay, sorry, wait, scrap that. I'll be going to my best case and worst case scenario here. I tell here how I prove how government's best case is something that still works on opposition best case. I tell the opposition best case, okay, our worst case scenario that this doesn't work out as well. I tell here that the alternative policies mentioned in DLO can just you can just report the bad things, right? On government's best case, I tell here that it does work and there's no cyberbullying. But I tell here it's still something that happens on our side too. There are so many ways to deal with cyberbullying here. Not just I tell here that just banning this social media is not the only way here. Okay. Now to a few clashes here. Which side actually proves the benefits for these vulnerable stakeholders, which are the depressed teens or the mentally ill teens? I tell you, on government, they give you the soft line case of just banning social media. Yeah.
How are you so sure that cyberbullying on your side will stop?
Cyberbullying on us. Okay, cyberbullying on our side will stop because we ban the catalyst from the problems here. I tell here that social media have the incentive to make their platform safer. So the reason why cyberbullying on our side stops is because we ban the people we ban the catalyst from actually giving the problems. Okay. Opposition tells you a few things here. Number 1 is they want to ban social media. Firstly, they never give the analysis to why this will work. Teenagers on their side still suffer from depression because they never give the comparative. When they say they want to ban social media, that's it. They never actually tell us how these teenagers are going to resolve and how these teenagers are actually going to be happier. Okay, on opposition, we tell them the simple thing. We want to uplift the ban on social media. We don't want to ban it. We told you already why this works. We already gave you a lot of analysis to this.
But
I already tell you on how there's better mitigation on our side. Why? It's because we allow these teens to actually open up online. We give the opportunity for these teens to go online and like spread, oh guys, I'm being like cyberbullying, I want to do self-harm. So actually people on the online can have the incentive to obviously stop this here. So I tell you here, on our side, we allow teens to open up because I tell you that which team has the guts to actually open up to their parents? No one. Okay, why is opposition better in this stance here? Because the government just bans the social media with no actual care for the teens. They just want to ban it, and after that, this will lead to this social media to actually losing their primary users. And because of course they don't want that, they don't have an incentive for that because they have profit incentive. They obviously want to keep more. We want to keep the primary users on their platform here. That is the incentive of social media platforms. On opposition, I tell you here, they leave teens to magically become happy again with no actual care, with no actual analysis to that. Opposition tells you that we mitigate the issue. We open the gateway for these depressed teens to actually come online and actually resolve the issue here. Second, on which side actually proves better in the long term? On government, they tell you a few flamboyant impacts here. Number one, on how for mentally ill kids, they'll just say, oh, we ban social media. We don't want them to be on social media because social media is somehow bad for their mental health. Right? Second, they say filtering out teens and adults. How do they do this? By putting in your birth date or using IC verification. I tell you here, it's not really good on their side in the long term because number one, you score teens of the opportunities to actually open up. Number two, teens can just fake verification because i.e. they're faking their birth date to, I don't know, being born in 1901 or something, or they use other adults' ICs here. I tell you this, you don't really solve this case here. You only give short-term benefits with long-term harms. On our side here, I tell you that there's more long-term benefits because on our side, the analysis is just way more than your side. Opposition tells you a few things. Number one, teens can socialize and find a community online. Number two, and then teens can find hotlines and support groups anonymously. This is better in the long term because teens get advice from people and after that gradually move out of depression. We tell you the model is simple, is that we allow these teenagers to actually resolve their issue, but as you don't. I tell you here, okay, why is opposition better? Because we don't waste the resources and time doing users verification that obviously have flaws. What is people for teens to work around? It's useless. It's short term only. We improve the safety of social media, and social media has the incentive to obviously have better safety because these teens are the primary users. I tell you here that even if Lodge and SNK Greenload debated this motion 6 or 7 more times, I tell you that Lodge obviously will come out on top. There's no debate to this. Take side with all.
Speakers spoke for 7 minutes and 34 seconds. Thank you very much, Opposition Whip. I'd like to now invite the Opposition Reply Speaker to give their speech.
Mic test. My speech will start in 3, 2, 1. If our team were leprechauns, the only thing waiting at the end of the rainbow that is SSIDC is a bucket load of exams. But this doesn't have to be the case for the majority of teams on social media. When you get people banned, it doesn't mean that they don't bypass it. But when you have better safety regulations, it does lead to a safer, more inclusive environment for everyone. I tell you that this is a definite benefit on our side. But let me ask you something. How are you so sure that the bans work in the first place? It was never our burden to prove why cyberbullying is completely stopped on our side, but you did have to prove why bans are actually necessary and do work. We've told you things like statistics, where in Australia it was proven to be unsuccessful because people can just use VPNs, or if that seems too hard for you, they can just go and pick someone else's online account or just ask for their friend's phone in order to see things on social media. These bans do not work because you cannot directly verify every single person that uses social media. There are so many 16-year-olds in this room right now. Social media companies do not have the time to go through every single one of their identification thoroughly. But I tell you a few call-outs here. First of all, you frame all teenagers as people who are vulnerable, as people who are cyberbullied, when teenagers have the mental
on your side when teenagers are never exposed to this harm at all until they reach the age of 17, when they get this massive culture shock. Because if online communities are as toxic as you seem, I would much rather have them completely used to it by the time that they are 17, rather than completely desensitized and get the full impact of it when they reach this age of 17. But second of all, you frame teenagers as people who will always go by the rules when you don't understand that many teenagers are not these kind of people. They're people who are very influenced by their peers and peer pressure. When you see all your friends still on social media or still going online, when you're desperate to have a community at a young age, you're desperate to fit in, you will go against these bands. This puts teenagers at a very harmful state because they could be called out, they could be arrested, this could label them for the rest of their lives. A few areas of contention here. First of all, you frame social media companies as exploitory and profit incentivized. Thank you very much. This means that they are more likely to exploit the ban rather than regulations. Because the ban causes them to lose users, causes them to lose engagement. Regulation only solidifies their credibility and makes them more safe and makes more users flock to social media. The exploitory characterization does not lead to less regulations. But second of all, on effectiveness, I tell you that regulations are more likely to work because number one, they already exist in status quo. All companies have to do is build upon existing frameworks, but also because there's things like cancel culture or vigilantes. If I were to go online and see someone call someone else in a slur or something very insulting, most people will call them out. Most people are keyboard warriors who will try and defend the good. And I tell you that this doesn't happen on your side when it's already proven through statistics that people cannot effectively ban everyone. Now, onto the psychological harm. I tell you that on the side of government, teenagers have no one to open up to. They have no one to actually talk to other than their parents. The bottom line here is simple. Let's sweep the whole debate out the window and let's just take it at its core. Let's say that yes, every single person is bad. What do teenagers lose? They lose support structures. They lose people that they want to talk to online for their whole lives. These teenagers are vulnerable, as I've stated before. They have no other metrics or avenues in order to get these communities. They need someone to talk to share their insecurities to, and to actually stop psychological harm in the first place. They're at a developmental stage in life where they actually need friends to learn how to socialize, to learn how to build communities, and to actually text their teachers when they get homework. It's not nothing that you can't depend solely on your parents. For all these reasons, I urge you to side with opposition.
Speakers will for 4 minutes and 8 seconds. I'd like to thank the opposition reply speaker for their speech, and would now like to invite the government reply speaker to close the debate with the following speech.
What do you think about children?
Am I audible at this volume? I'll be starting my speech in 3, 2, 1. The children of the future are the children that we need to protect. On proposition side of the house, we are the ones that protect them from being influenced by bad and negative influences in the first place. Opposition just tells you that regulation will magically work. We think this was so wrong in the first place. So proud to propose. The structure of my reply speech is simple. I'll be giving 5 different call-outs and I'll weigh this debate. Firstly, they told you that even if it was true that you could report the mean comment on TikTok and Instagram, you have to note that both sides conceded that there were so many cases coming in to the point that there needed to be a ban and regulation, right? This is insofar as you had so many people posting on social media and they wanted to be a toxic person and continue the cycle of toxicity. This means that you had thousands of reports coming in. That insofar as you never stopped it through a ban, it was going to continue anyway. But this was really funny as well. That when you were going to report the person that told you that you were ugly, they will immediately get banned. Insofar as I still had the avenues to continue, insofar as my account wasn't going to get banned straight up, I could still continue on harassing and bashing others, right? But the implication to this was that a ban wasn't immediate on their something house. That you get reported and through regulation, it was going to take time for you to get justice. We weighed this of urgency. It was urgent to stop cyberbullying in the first place. They did this gradually in a gradual trend, right? But even if it was so effective to ban people after you reported them, this was going to take time and capital. Insofar as they never actually analyzed to you how these companies would have the capital to ban these people in the first place, and insofar as they told you that it was going to be urgent for them to ban these people, I don't see why is it going to be so effective in the first place. But they told you that if I get reported so many times, I'll get banned anyway. So what? What's stopping me from making new accounts anyway? What's stopping me from continuing the cycle of harassment insofar as I just don't like that person? But who cares? Because insofar as I can just continue the cycle and I can just harass others on the internet, I don't see why regulation was so important insofar as they never actually removed the root of the problem, right? But they told you that companies were profit incentivized. That companies want to make it safer. But the only avenue that you could ensure safety and have these people happy was because you could ban social media. That means there was going to be more backlash of people opting out of your company and your social media platform because they knew that this platform wasn't inherently safe. That I was going to be banned, I was going to be bashed because I told people that I told people that I like this, that I like Nestle Hotel and I like Genshin Impact. But this means that less people were going to opt into your company in the first place. There were going to be lower people in your user base. This means there's going to be less credibility because you built up a negative name for your company in the first place. This means less people are going to opt into your company. I don't see why this leads to profit incentivization, right? But they told you that our case was softline. We were pretty hardline this debate. We were never softline. Our stance was banning it for teens, right, under 16. This was effective through examples in status quo like Australia, but they told you that cyberbullying was inevitable, that we could never stop cyberbullying because everyone was bad. On our side of the house, we could mitigate these harms through banning, right? But they told you that teenagers aren't just that vulnerable. When I was 13 years old, I was making gacha videos. I didn't know about the world. This means that the majority of teenagers and the majority of kids under 16 were not going to be mature enough to know what's happening in this world. But let's wait a bit on the fulfillment of happiness versus safety, right? Because this was purely conditional on our side of the house. Happiness was only achieved if you were having a great time. Because time and time again, this internet was not perfect. We told you that the only way you could have happiness and have engaging and fun discourse with your friends was if you had safety. But regulation doesn't work. Wave shot themselves in the foot. He told you that you could remove the catalyst of the problem. They told you from L on their own, they would just remove bad content. We told you that insofar as we could stop the problem in the first place through banning, we were so proud to dislodge.
Speakers spoke for 4 minutes.